Hello, my friends. It seems like it is all hoax. There will be no meeting between Donald Trump and Putin in Budapest or wherever. Or maybe it was just postponed for unlimited period of time, unknown period, it's better to say. Why? Well, maybe because for Donald Trump even, it is now understandable that this meeting is just for nothing. There was a phone call between Rubbia and Lavrov the day before yesterday. They spoke for more than an hour for sure, and as a result of this conversation, Rubbia understood that Russia is not willing to cease fire. Russian demands are the same as they were years ago. Putin wants all of those territories which he put in his constitution, including Donbass and Donetsk Oblast, fully. The issue here for Putin, first of all, that Ukraine has the robust defense line. It goes across Dobropilya and through Slavyansk, Kramatorsk and Konstantinivka. And the Russian army, for now, is incapable to penetrate those defense lines and get control over this region. Behind this area, Ukraine doesn't have those kind of the robust defense lines, and there are just few settlements which could be used as the defense positions. So basically, by occupying this territory, Russia opens the door or the gate to advance to Pavlograd and later on to the Dnipro city. Also, they might go northbound to Kharkiv and attack the city from two of the sides. And a couple of days ago, Zelensky mentioned, I think I already said about it, but I want to mention it in this video, that why this big country as Russia wants to get those few square kilometers of Ukrainian land. For what? Well, here's the answer. They want to open the front lines for them. They want to crush Ukrainian defense. And they're using their diplomacy as the soft force, brainwashing Donald Trump and Davydov, which is kind of easy thing to do, as we say. Well, Zelensky said that Ukraine will never give up its territories, so Russia will have to waste thousands and thousands of soldiers and huge resources for the full occupation of the Donetsk Oblast. At least I do not believe that Russia may fully occupy Ukraine after all, with that kind of the resistance. At least nowadays it looks like that. And after the conversation with Marco Rubio, Lavrov mentioned that calls for ceasefire right now without addressing the root causes of Ukrainian conflict contradict what Putin and Trump agreed to in Alaska, Lavrov said. Well, actually, there was no agreement in Alaska. We understand that. It was the failed meeting, even though Donald Trump praises it as something new, but no, it was complete miserable diplomatic failure. Plus, the Russian foreign minister claims that most of Ukraine will remain under Nazi control if a ceasefire is agreed upon now. And here again, I want to show you this map. So Lavrov claims that Ukraine, those Nazis in Ukraine, will keep control on most of the Ukraine, but even if Russia occupies all of those regions, still Ukraine has its sovereign right on most of the Ukrainian territory. So what he says here, that Russia will not let Ukraine control the most of the territories of Ukraine, most of Ukraine. It's kind of the interesting word swaps. That's why sometimes I listen to those even Russian officials, because they say what they think, and they again say it about the root causes of war. And the root cause is for Russia to obtain some sort of the security guarantees. That is what Putin said to Donald Trump during their last call. And even Trump told to Zelensky about some sort of the security guarantees for Russia. Then Putin mentioned United States, that United States should guarantee those security measures for Russia by withdrawing the NATO forces from Eastern Europe entirely. Not just American forces, but all of the forces. Those countries should exit somehow NATO alliance. And that is the main thing here, not the Donbass, not even Ukraine. Putin wants to restore his empire. In every video, almost in every one, I tell about this stuff. I'm 100% sure that Putin thinks like that, because he tells that openly in his interviews, press conferences. But what he tells to Donald Trump, well, it's sometimes opposite, sometimes not, but Donald Trump really believes to this bullshit. Well, still the meeting between Lavrov and Rubio might happen in the next 10 days on 30th of October, as it is now planned, but still there is no confidence of how it might go and whether this meeting is really possible after their last conversation, because Russia continued to stand its crazy ground, despite their losses, despite their crisis in fuel industry, economy. Still, they want to reach the goals of the special military operation and resolve the root causes of this war. And for this reason, I don't see how the objective conversation is possible between Lavrov, Rubio, between Putin and Trump. Everything is the same. We are going on the same circle for months, months, and months. And sometimes then we hear some of the pro-Ukrainian Trump's rhetorics or anti-Russian rhetorics. It is just blah, blah, blah. Trump will tackle once again and again and again. That is how it is. That is how Donald Trump was built, probably. No consistency, no competence. We see it. Okay, let's listen to what Donald Trump say about the possible meeting.
The meeting with Vladimir Putin is canceled or put on hold. Do you know what happened there, and does that affect your decision whether or not to send Tomahawks?
No, I don't want to have a wasted meeting. I don't want to have a waste of time, so I'll see what happens. But we did all of these great deals, great peace deals. They're all peace deals, agreements, solid agreements, every one of them. But this one, and I said, go to the line of battle, the battlefield lines, and you pull back and you go home, and everybody take some time off, because you got two countries that are killing each other. You got two countries that are losing 5,000 to 7,000 soldiers a week. So we'll see what happens. We haven't made a determination.
You heard that probably. This idiot is like this broken record, repeats the same narratives, the same words again and again, and he's been asked the same questions about the war in Ukraine. But of course, I'm happy that American journalists continue to ask those questions. Those are must-have, and for Donald Trump, this topic should be out there always in every of his press conference. It should be his pain in the ass, and he should be forced at least for some action. For example, selling weapons to European partners. And here Donald Trump, he said that he doesn't want to have a meeting without any sort of the result. And for now, it is like now we have this vivid argumentation of Donald Trump after the conversation between Rubio and Lavrov that Russia still wants to follow its demands to get the territories of Ukraine under control by any sort of the means. Well, Donny tried to push Ukraine to give up territories, it didn't work, so he doesn't know what to do next, but the only variant is just to continue military support of Ukraine. Actually, there is nothing else. United States President, any kind of Joe Biden, Donald Trump, George Washington, no one is able really to influence Putin that much, rather than support Ukrainian army directly, physically. All of those diplomatic games with Putin, they backfire pretty much hard. And about the end of the war, no one can stop it. No one except Russia itself. Russia started and Russia should stop it. With Putin, without Putin, but only they can withdraw their forces back to Russia. And then Trump says, okay, those soldiers should just go home. Well, just imagine if Ukrainian soldiers just go home and Russians won't, yeah? Ukraine will be conquered in this case, so it's just useless. This rhetoric of Donald Trump reminds me of some sort of the hippie who is waving with the poster, stop the war, but it doesn't work like that. There should be some actual actions to stop the war. He already called Putin stop several of the times, right? And it doesn't work, but Donny continued to call the same stuff again and again. It's the definition of insanity, really. And here's our peacemaker who stopped the war that lasted for how long he said before, 3,000 years. The war between Palestinians and Israeli, which he said he stopped before. How many days it was? Less than 2 weeks? 2 weeks, Donny. And still, there is the fight. So it was his tweet from yesterday where he says that some of the allies are willing to deploy their troops into Gaza and strengthen somehow our Hamas. If Hamas continues to act badly, but I told them, not yet. Yeah, just translate you the meaning of this crazy language he uses here. And here he mentions there is still a hope that Hamas will do what is right. Otherwise, it's gonna be fast, furious, and brutal response. So what happened to this war, Donny? Why there is still bombing? Why they're still shooting? 3,000 years war, the best peacemaker in a history, Donald Trump, and still fights? How could it be? Maybe someone set up Donald Trump, or maybe Donald Trump is just an orange, incompetent idiot. By the way, my friends, I have my another channel. It's called Captain Dennis. The link for it is in the video description just below. And here I already told about the story. The day that deal was signed, so-called deal, I already said that it was already before. There were numerous of the deals, but the war continued for decades. With Hamas, without Hamas, but it's the war that will still continue for extensive period of time. And Donald Trump just cannot resolve it because he is incompetent president, incompetent leader in every sort of the sphere. Foreign policy, internal policy, economy, security, immigration even. He is stupid. Yeah, just for you to understand that he is unable to resolve the war in Ukraine. And Putin is happy about it. That's why there were numerous of the pro-Russian and Russian bots in social media, including Twitter, that the last year they propelled pro-MAGA narratives, helping Donald Trump to be elected in United States. Donald Trump's presidency is very profitable for Russia and for other autocratic regimes in our planet. Partially it is like that in China. So I do not expect anything good from Donald Trump for Ukraine or for democracy in general. He put everything of that under threat, and Russia will continue to escalate. That is what Donny now is doing, shattering the White House. He wants to build his 250 million ballroom. Crazy. But that is Donny. There is no better way to spend those money, and there is no better activity than to destroy the White House, which is also people's house, a historical heritage. Who cares? Let's just crush it. By the way, before he mentioned that he would not touch the construction itself. But here you see it, yeah? Well, I don't have a clue whether this project is a real one and not just AI-generated image, but if it is like that, it is crazy ugly. As you might see, guys, the situation is completely out of control, but still I have my own prediction that the war will continue because there is no any sort of the move from Russia, and they don't want actually to finish this war, unfortunately. And only they can do it, not Ukraine, not the United States, not the European Union. Ukraine may just defend itself, actually, stopping Russia physically, but without the proper military support, it's not possible. That's why Russia is propelling forward, taking small portions of the ground. Yeah, Russians mainly bogged down, they're struggling, but they have big resources to continue the war for now, but we'll see in a few years how it could be. With more pressure on Russia, it is actually possible not to slow down the war, but to cause Russian regime to think, okay, maybe it's not profitable for us right now to continue this war. Let's cease fire for at least several years, because I'm sure that Russia has strategic decision to occupy all of the Ukraine. But at least there could be some of the gap for Ukraine to prepare for another worst scenario. But now we see that the pressure on Russia has been released by White House administration. We also see that Europeans continue to trade with Russia. Like, for example, yesterday there were a couple of the kabooms in Hungary and Romania. The oil refineries which were associated with Russia went on fire somehow, but still it shows that Russia has its own influence in Europe. They're selling their products, they have their income, not just from China or India. So the current political situation and economy one encourages Putin to continue this war. Well, guys, it's all what I want to say today, and thank you again for your kind support on Patreon. The link for it is in the video description just below, and also you may support me on membership of the channel by clicking join right under this video somewhere. Thank you so much for making my job possible. And my friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.